Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Ukrainian show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and we have our Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Thank you, Sasha. Glad to be here.
Yeah, great to have you as always. And our own Ivan Kucherenko from Kyiv, Ukraine. Welcome to the show, Ivan.
Hello to everyone.
Yeah, I want to share with you something what I just heard a couple of hours ago. There is a channel, Ivan, maybe you're familiar with Kurbanova. She's a very funny girl, very good professional. And she, you know what she's doing? She shows some clips from Russian television and makes fun out of it and explains what it is. So one clip was shown where a Russian general, he explains how works this Kinzhal and its missile, and it's what kind of devastation there is one. So he's very thoroughly explains. Okay, so if Kinzhal indeed hit its target, so what is the result of it? Okay, there is the place is around completely devastated. It's 150 meters in radius. So therefore, it's 300 meters in diameter. So this general definitely knows his math. Perfect. Okay. And then it's going to be 15 meters deep. That's what devastation there is. Now, that interview was shown 15 minutes before Ukrainians sputtered. They hit that Kinshal. So it was so funny. Just 15 minutes prior to that, he was talking about what a devastation it will be, or so on and on. That's really funny. And to share it with you, Ivan, how's the life in Kyiv these days? What's happening?
It's pretty noisy in Kiev because we have several nights when Russians tried to bomb Kiev with the drones, with the missiles. So it was really frightening, but luckily all the missiles and all the drones were shot down by Ukrainian anti-air defense. So luckily no casualties. I think couple of civilians were hurt by fallen remnants of the missiles and drones, but luckily no casualties, no death. And but what is funny, I just want to add you that Russians arrested 3 scientists for responsible for developing.
You traitors! You designed a crappy system.
Yeah,
It's essentially
Kinzhal missiles. So I think that because
our
of
nuclear
that,
suitcase is better than that.
Yeah, I think how much money they stole by developing Kinzhal.
They actually confirmed that these missiles were shot down and their Wunderwaffe is useless. So that's I think it's very clear confirmation of that fact because those scientists were arrested.
No, Kinzhal is a very, very good weapon. Depends where are you using it. If you are using it against Syria, for example, it's devastating. It will kill just any target in Syria, so on. But Ukraine is not Syria. That's, I think, the greatest miscalculations of Russians are.
Yeah. Actually, this is their greatest mistake, that they tried to use the same tactics in Ukraine as in Syria, and according to the interviews I've told you about, interview of Zaluzhny, chief commander of Ukrainian armed forces, Ukrainian commanders were not actually were not even didn't thought that Russians will use the same tactics in Ukraine as they used in Syria, because we are Slavic people. We're as they're claiming brother nation, but they've used the same tactics. They started to destroy cities, to kill civilians.
You're missing very important things. It's brothers, but Russia is a big brother and Ukraine is a small brother. So the big brother sometimes is trying to help the small brother who lost its way and started to be friendly with the West, with America. So the big brother is saying, okay, little brother, I will help you. Okay, come on here. And little brother all of a sudden doesn't need any help from big brother. He said, you know what?
Little brother hits big
Oh.
brother in a sensitive spot.
I have only one question: where are parents, and why they're not striking Big Brother so he will not?
Just ask NATO.
uh,
Here comes the foster big brother.
Yeah,
But,
big brother need a little bit of scolding from his
Yes,
parent.
little brother shouldn't hit big brother in the sensitive spot. Yeah, but anyway, what's really impressive about this, when you consider how air defenses in World War II, where the Germans were using the drones, the V1s, the V2s, and there was virtually no defense against that, except possibly against the V1s, where the Spitfires and fighters would maneuver under the flying drones and tip them over, and so they go spinning into the water. There was some defense there because they were relatively slow. Now, with sophistication of Patriot and the other ballistic missile defense systems, you have the situation that I described earlier. Once you enter a sophisticated ballistic missile defense system into the equation, into the operational battlefield, you have now introduced a huge degree of uncertainty into the minds of Russian planners. They cannot be certain how many of their missiles will get through. They do not know which ones will get through. What they do know is that they do not themselves have a comparable capability for blocking NATO's and Ukrainians' counterstrikes. So this is the situation that I described. And the success of Patriot on the battlefield in intercepting ballistic missiles to such a high degree, that bodes very well for the eventual post-war establishment of a global ballistic missile defense system.
Absolutely.
With U.S. in combination with NATO, creating a system which, again, by improving the Space Force, upgrading it to where it is actually a true space fleet in presence which would be manned by not only U.S. Space Force personnel, but also for NATO personnel manning these Space Force spacecraft, and the Ukraine could be part of that. So this is a foreshadowing of the future success of global ballistic missile defense.
You're absolutely right. And you know what? This is why Russians, because they don't have adequate air defense systems, they're crying so much about the Storm Shadow. And now French will provide this also missiles. I forget this funny name they have. Ivan, do you remember the name of this French missile? It's very funny. Okay, I'll read it. I forgot it last program as well, and although I I read the materials yesterday and today, and I said, oh, finally I have the name. Now I don't have it in front of me, and I forgot it. But I'll remember. They're similar to the English missiles, and in fact, French discussed it before committing to it. They discussed it with Ukraine and with Great Britain. So this is kind of a accord in which both countries participate in. United States are still on the sidelines. They are not confirming, neither they denying F-15s or F-16s rather. I don't know. I studied this question a lot, and I don't have a conclusion what is the right approach here, because on one hand, Ukrainians will learn very quickly how to maneuver the F-16s. On the other hand, what one of the Ukrainian commentators, I think it was Tsvitan, who is a former pilot, he said that for F-16s will be effective, here's what's needed. Needed at least 100 of them. 20, 30, 50 it's not going to work. 100, number one. Number two, system of maintenance of this. The flying, okay, they can fly from existing airports. And the most important thing is the air radars. At least for 100 F-16s, they need 4 air radars, because only that will see the complete picture, and they will make F-16s 10 times as much effective with the radars. Because let's see, there are Russian planes on a distance of, say, 200 kilometers. The radar immediately connects with F-16s who is in the area, and it can hit the Russian plane of 200 kilometers. Without that radar, they can hit the planes maybe 20 kilometers.
That makes a big difference. That makes more of a possibility.
That's a huge difference. That's all the difference there is to it. Because of the Russian plane, they're flying somewhere, and 200 kilometers is a huge distance. So they don't even know what's ahead of them, what hits them. They have no idea. Now, 20 kilometers, it's already, you can maneuver, you can do something. It's a huge difference. So, provided that all that, even not together, not in one stage, but in a few stages, could be actually delivered, the question of Ukrainians learning how to fly and fight in F-16s, this is a secondary question at all, because they are very quick learners, and I can see that in a few months from now, Ukrainians instructors will teach not to be pilots how to fly F-16s.
Hey, look what new tricks we have to show you.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is question, but I don't think it's a crucial question for now, because right now Ukrainians are slowly, and they're not really providing like a heavy blow in one direction. So Russian have to still guess what Ukrainians up to, where they're going to have a major attack. Although now in around Bakhmut, Ukrainians are quite successful, and they will most likely encircle the city.
Yes, because you can infer from the descriptions that the Russian forces, they say, are pushing forward into the city, but the Ukrainians are gaining ground around the flanks of the city, north and south. Basically, what that describes to you is that the Russians are pushing forward, but they're pushing their heads into a noose. They're putting a force in where they're going to be cut off, and even better, the Ukrainians are doing this with.
Yeah, they're completely encircling this, and also all around Bakhmut there are heights, so there will be always on a certain height compared to Russian forces who are down, and they will, like one commentator said, they will just shoot them like ducks. Okay, here comes. Okay, let's shoot this guy. Oh, okay, down. Okay, here's another guy. Oh yeah, over there, over here. And so it will like you're going to exercises, just killing them one after the other. But there is one instance, though, that I more and more believe that part of the strategy of Ukrainians could be that they will, in fact, invade Russian territory. Belgorod, Kursk, to encircle Donbass completely and attack Donbass from the side where they least expected, from the Russian side. I don't know.
It's quite plausible. It would also be quite daring, and it would be definitely forcing the Russians to, okay, either put up or shut up. It's either get out of Ukraine, or be surrounded.
Mm-hmm. Well, so that's an instance that I would well justified to enter the Russian territory. Mind you, I'm not against entering Russian territory, period. Even if Ukrainians will start a very, very strong attack against a city like, say, Moscow, for example, because the Russian there is no defense. Russians don't have defense because in all this corridor from Belgorod to Moscow, there is very little resistance will be made because Russians never thought that they could be attacked on their own soil. So if you will take a bunch of Leopards 2 and Abrams, if they will arrive at the time, and they will start in very quick lightning attack against Moscow, they will easily take it. The question is whether Ukrainians need it. Because you see, if you take even if you take Moscow, what's next? Are you going to try to control all the Russian territory? I don't think that anybody can do it. So this is kind of, I mean, spectacular advance, but there is very little follow up if Ukrainians would do it.
Well, I would not put too much stock in any potential plans, real or imaginary, to penetrate deep into Russia and to cut off large Russian forces, because that puts an intense the logistical strain on Ukrainian forces is
True.
considerable enough already. You don't want to overplay your hand by trying to go for a spectacular encirclement, because then you fall into the same trap that the Germans fell into in World War II during Operation Barbarossa. The Germans had even less logistical capability for sustaining that type of a deep penetration. And even though the Ukrainians are quite well equipped, they are superbly well equipped right now for defense. They're superbly well equipped for counterattack, for local counterattacks, for counteroffensives on their own soil, and arguably, to address your thing, for conducting limited penetrations or encirclements in order to complete the encirclement of those Russian forces that are within Ukraine. But going further than that, you're really pushing your luck.
Jonathan, but my opinion why Plan Barbarossa failed, there are two reasons. Number one, it started much later than it was planned. It was planned for May, and because of the resistance of Serbia and Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia, it was delayed until the end of June. And number two, the Guderian, all he wanted is just to go straight to Moscow. He didn't care about Kiev or Leningrad or whatever. Just go straight, take Moscow, and then we'll see what else do. Now, Hitler, on the other hand, he wanted Ukraine badly, so he wanted Kiev, of course. Then he wanted the Leningrad, but not the city. He wanted Leningrad district because there were a lot of military productions, facilities, and so on.
He spread his effort in Barbarossa among three major fronts: Army Group South going to Ukraine, Army Group Center going for Moscow, and Army Group North going for Leningrad. And the Germans spread their efforts across three fronts, which was just, one front going for Moscow. Yeah, they could very well have succeeded, even with the late start that they got in June. But you're correct, the late start that they got, whereas they should have begun, say, in May, or May at the latest, they lost valuable time there. They lost valuable time in diverting their attention to various other objectives other than the central objective of Moscow. But getting back to the current thing here, the Ukrainians are not falling into that trap. They have been pressing what I call their reconnaissance and force around Bakhmut. They have been succeeding there. They are reinforcing that success, and they figure, well, while we've got them on the run here and are moving them out and diverting them, we're rendering them more vulnerable to the eventual counteroffensive when we decide it is time to throw that punch.
And at the same time, Jonathan, if you will, there are still a lot of peace initiatives coming from China, coming from now Zelensky. Actually, Zelensky is doing a fantastic job. He's visiting now Saudi Arabia, then he's going to Japan, and in that I really enjoyed the article by the Japanese Prime Minister about the new meaning of Hiroshima. It's from Foreign Affairs, And he is saying that from May 19th to 21, I'm hosting the leaders of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, the United Kingdom, the United States, and the European Union in Hiroshima for the 2023 summit of G7. The symbolism of the location is both powerful and deliberate. Hiroshima, the city I have represented throughout my political career, was destroyed by an atomic bomb in 1945, the first time nuclear weapons were used. That terrible history led me to make nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation my life's work, animated by the ideal of a world without nuclear weapons. Today, Hiroshima's past should serve as a reminder of what can happen when peace and order break down and give way to instability and conflict, a reminder that what is needed than any other time in recent decades. And then he's talking about Ukraine quite a bit. He's talking that in March, I visited Ukraine in the city of Bucha. I saw with my own eyes the consequences of Russia's atrocities, and I heard the stories of those who survived these brutal acts. While there, I invited Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to participate in discussion at the summit, a testament of the G7 members' common commitment to continue supporting Ukraine and maintaining severe sanctions against Russia. In Hiroshima, we will once again call on Russia to immediately and unconditionally withdraw all forces and equipment from Ukraine and reiterate that forcible acquisition of territory and unilateral attempts to change internationally recognized borders by force cannot be allowed. So this is very strong statement from Japanese Prime Minister. And Zelensky finally is doing what Ukraine failed to do for the last 30 years. He is developing its own diplomacy. It's basically birth of Ukrainian diplomacy we are witnessing right now. His trip to Europe, to the United States, now Japan, Saudi Arabia, and so on. That's what Ukraine failed to do for the last 30 years because the Ukrainian elite, they were comfortable to exist around Russia and making profits on Russian gas contracts and all other things. They failed completely to develop independent Ukraine, independent country, independent army. They failed miserably. But it's all changing right now before our own eyes. You agree, Ivan?
Yeah, actually,
You need,
yeah.
need more coffee.
Actually, this war changes Ukraine a lot, and Ukrainians say that during this war, actually, the Ukrainian nation is being reborn and being
100%.
built. Yeah, and we see a lot of interesting cases besides the battlefield and besides the success of Ukrainian army. We see changes in the Ukrainian economy. At least it's not dead, and some areas of economy are even growing, and some businesses, for instance, I read a recent interview with Glova delivery service, which is actively doing business in Ukraine. It's a competitor of Uber Eats, and they increased all their business aspects during 2022 in the war in the country, which according to Russian propaganda is completely destroyed by these numerous attacks, and is staying on the knees begging some money from the Western countries. But I'm sure that even without the support of Western countries, probably Ukraine will stay, because the main thing that we have in our hearts and our souls is the desire of freedom. and this war is the war of Ukrainian freedom. I think after the Ukrainian victory in this war and Ukraine being part of European Union and NATO, Ukrainian passport will be one of the most powerful in the world.
Absolutely, totally agree.
For today, I have a really interesting video about another passport.
Let's see.
Which during previous years was also powerful, but now it's like a black mark in some way. So let's see in this video about Russian passports. So
Thank you.
Please launch it.
In 2021, 735,400 foreigners obtained Russian citizenship, a record for Moscow since the year 2000. Russia was preparing for the war against Ukraine. Strategically, proximate data, the Russians forcibly mobilized over 100,000 men in the occupied Donbass. Their newly received Russian passports became their tickets to war. In addition to forced passportization, Ukrainians are sent to Russia by deception. According to official data, over 1,600,000 Ukrainians, including 260,000 to 700,000 minors, were illegally deported. Moscow also pursues a similar policy of suppressing certain regions on its territory, keeping them in poverty. The only social elevator remains the army. The salary is many times higher than that of a school teacher, and you can go easy on yourself. Your education level is not that important. And if there is even a hint of separatist sentiment in your region, you're the first to go to war. Tens of thousands of Burats, Tuvans, and Chechens were sent to Ukraine like cannon fodder. In Astrakhan, only 13% of the local population are Kazakhs and Tatars, but 75% of casualties come from these ethnic groups. In this way, the Russian Federation not only seeks to conquer new territories, but also wears out and destroys indigenous peoples inside its country with the hands of the armed forces of Ukraine, involving far fewer of the wealthy from Moscow or St. Petersburg in the war. Moscow is also lucky to have poor neighbors nearby, whose citizens are eager to earn a penny in Russia, where they're used as cheap labor. Residents of Central Asia receiving information about the war mainly from the Kremlin media do not all realize that sanctions have already hit the Russian economy, and that it's better for them to look for work in other countries. They see the unexpected offer to get a Russian passport through an accelerated procedure as very attractive. They just have to serve a little in the Russian army. By suggesting a bright future and offering its passports to the residents of Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan, Russia is making them conscripts. In addition, pre-immigration centers aiming to help all those wanting to come to Russia as soon as possible have already opened in Central Asia. The leadership of these countries seems to be fine with being a supplier of soldiers for the army of the Russian Federation. Everyone who gets a Russian passport should remember that this is a ticket to war.
Excellent, Ivan. That's exactly what's happening in Russia, and I think it's not going to end well for Russia and Russian people, for those who will remain alive. With that, I would like to thank you for today's program, and I think we will have very, very good news by our next meeting here on Tuesday, same time, same place. Thank you so much, and Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.